Hello and welcome back to the Kidmin podcast. My name is Kenny Conley and I am your host on this podcast. It's so great to have you back for episode 4. Now, we've just kicked off this thing and we're still pretty new, a couple things, and I'm excited about the conversation I want to have with you today. We're going to continue to talk about volunteers and scheduling volunteers, but we're going to tap into a very practical side of volunteer schedules. But before we dive into that, I want to remind you that Ministry Boost is launching our annual coaching cohorts. So if you're in a role of kids ministry or next gen ministry, or maybe you're a student pastor or you work with a student pastor, we offer family ministry coaching cohorts. This is maybe the 4th or 5th year that we've done this, like consecutively. Actually, Ministry Boost was founded on coaching cohorts and mastermind cohorts. And so this is something that we love. So it's an opportunity to build community around like-minded leaders and build your ministry. We talk about the foundational structures of what healthy family ministry looks like, and you can apply this in beautiful ways no matter what role you're in. But if you are a Kidmin leader, definitely want to take advantage of this. You can go check out the joining a coaching cohort at ministryboost.org. We'd love to have you in there for this season. Only a few more weeks and we'll be starting those up in mid-February. And so go ahead and check that out. We'd love to have you in one of our 2026 cohorts. Well, today we're going to dive into the weeds a little bit of volunteer scheduling. Now, listen, we've been talking about the different types of schedules that we tend to utilize to schedule our volunteers. In our last episode, we went really kind of in an intentional space of why you should recruit volunteers to serve every week and the weekly things. And that plays a role into this conversation of scheduling your volunteers. But I want to kind of get into the details of, I want to share with you some big ideas around scheduling volunteers that I hope will make your job easier. Because scheduling volunteers ends up usually being a big part of our job. We spend a lot of time trying. It's like playing Tetris, but with human beings. And it's not nearly as much fun, okay? And so we're trying to put people in the right place where they need to be. And I'll be perfectly honest, I don't schedule volunteers very often. And I haven't very often. In 27 years of ministry, I have usually found myself in positions where I'm overseeing staff who schedule volunteers. But I will be honest, there have been times where I've had team members leave my team, or I've had team members that I've had to help leave my team. And I found myself in a situation where I'm now scheduling volunteers. And almost every single time that's happened, I've had some very strong opinions about what was being done, what should be being done. And as I work alongside ministries, children's ministries, I coach around this idea because I see some natural inefficiencies when it comes to scheduling volunteers. And so what I want to do is I want to offer 3 really big ideas that might help you. Now, maybe you've already got this figured out and you're already doing this really great. Maybe that's great. Maybe 1 or 2 of these you've already got down. But maybe there's an idea here that you haven't implemented yet, you haven't thought of yet, or you haven't figured out how to get to yet. And I want to share that with you because this has the potential to save you a lot of time, like hours, like maybe a dozen hours of time. So let's dive into the nitty-gritty and talk about some big ideas around scheduling volunteers. Let me start with this. It's 2026. You should be using software to do this. Okay, now I'm pointing to myself at this. As of just 3 or 4 years ago, I was using Google Docs to schedule my volunteers. Now, there's some very specific reasons. I was a rebel. I was holding out. There were some things about Planning Center Online and some of the other softwares that I was resistant to. I didn't like. And so I was pushing back. And so I still liked my Google Doc, which technically is still software, but I was resisting the tools that had been designed for scheduling volunteers. And so, but now, today, My ministry uses Planning Center Online. It's a software we use for our church database, and it's amazing. It's amazing. If you have Planning Center or you use Church Community Builder or Rock or whatever it may be, and it has volunteer scheduling, you should use it. Okay. It'll save you time. There's a caveat in there, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. And it's my big beef as to why I didn't dive into it right away. And so, and I will point back to my Google Calendar and why I used it for so long, because there's some strategies around scheduling that my Google Doc helped me do that Planning Center didn't do at the time. So I'm going to encourage you, if you're using a whiteboard or paper or even a Google Doc, guys, stop it. Like it's time to move to the 21st century tools that have been created for us to do ministry. Now, I've had over the years, I've had some beefs. I remember, more than likely your church has used Planning Center for scheduling volunteers of worship and production for decades. Okay. Now, a lot of software, church management software, has built-in scheduling. And so maybe your church is fully embraced Church Community Builder or Rock or whatever it may be. But there's a good chance that your church might be using another software and your worship department is still using Planning Center Online. Just listen, use the software. There are some reasons why I didn't right away, but we're gonna talk about those things. So let's dive right into this, and I want to share with you the first of 3 big ideas around volunteer scheduling. Okay, the first one is this: stop scheduling week to week. Okay, stop scheduling week to week. If you are like, let's pretend today is Monday. And if Monday morning or Monday afternoon, you're opening up the software, you're opening up whatever it is that you schedule your volunteers on, and your primary focus is on getting this weekend's schedule scheduled, and because it's a mess, confirmations aren't there, you're doing it wrong. Okay? Don't schedule week to week. And this isn't pointing fingers at anyone. This is human nature. I mean, I don't know what the studies say, but like the number of people who live paycheck to paycheck, it's pretty big. Like people who are just 1 week away from something being due or something being overdue, like it's kind of natural human tendency. So if you find yourself scheduling volunteers week to week, you're in good company. But listen, there's a better way. There's a better life. Stop scheduling from week to week. You have to start scheduling a whole other time. I know there's so many churches that I've either stepped into as a new church, as a children's pastor or the next gen pastor at a church, or churches that I've come alongside to coach or develop. And one of the first things I've noticed was they're scheduling week to week. They're working on this Sunday as if like they just started. It happens with curriculum too. Many churches are just 1 week out with curriculum. They're getting the supplies ready. They're purchasing supplies. They're putting everything together. We can move our deadlines out and work more than a week out. I love to work at least a month out. Okay. You can start scheduling. This is what it might look like. Okay. Let's say it's the middle of January. Okay. When I'm recording this, it's not, but let's say it's the middle of January, like the 14th, 15th, 16th, somewhere in there. This is when I would start planning out my February schedule. Okay. It probably only takes an hour or two. I go and I look at the schedule. I go ahead and start putting people in their positions. And my goal would be that after an hour or two of getting my February schedule as good as I can get it. Now, then again, there's going to probably be some holes. Some people are on vacation. Some people are out. Maybe there's a couple of volunteers you need to recruit, but you should be able to be like 90, 95% there. I mean, maybe it's 80%. I don't know, but you're getting it mostly there. And then you're going to send it out to them. Okay. You're going to send it out to them and let them know, send them a text, send them an email. February schedules are out. Please take a look at it and then let me know that it all looks good. Because here's what I would do. Now, again, remember, I used to do this with a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet. I would send out the Google spreadsheet. I would create a PDF with 4 pages or 5 pages, depending on how many weekends there were in the month. And I'll say, take a look at it and then let me know that it's good. And then I would give them a week and most everybody would reply. If they didn't reply, I just assumed it was good. Okay. Or I talked to them on the weekend, like, hey, I didn't hear from you. Are you good? And then that meant that then the next week, I'm a week away from February, and now I've gotten all the feedback back from everybody. I moved some people around, I made some adjustments, and then the schedule is done. Now I might have to recruit some volunteers because I know where my subs are. I might need to make some adjustments or some movements, but probably 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of work, and I've got the month of February done, and I'm still a week away from February starting. Now here's the beauty of that is now I'm a week out and I have the whole next month done. That means next week on Monday, I'm just making some finishing touches to the next weekend. We're talking maybe an hour or two, maybe three, just to make sure everything's set. And then the next week, an hour or two, maybe three. It changes from being this weekly 7 to 10 hour project of scheduling volunteers week after week after week. I'll give you an example. The last time, like I stepped up to my neck in the volunteer schedule was about 7 or 8 years ago when I took over our preschool ministry at a church I served at in Arizona. And we had about 70 or 80 volunteer slots that I had to fill between 3 services on Sunday. And this is about the schedule that it took. It took about probably 3 to 5 hours in the middle of the month to schedule the following month. And then it was just like an hour or two of maintenance every week leading up. That just took the pressure off of me. You've got to be able to look at it a month at a time and send that out and get it. And so for me, it was really important. I have to be able to see a whole month at a time, whether I print it out or I look at it on my screen. This is one of the reasons why initially I didn't use Planning Center when it first came out, when it had scheduling for Kidmin. See, Planning Center was designed around like the large group production worship experiences. And it was kind of like a gig economy type scheduler. Like, hey, we've got a position for a vocalist. And so you'd send a message out to all your vocalists. Hey, we got one spot. Anyone want to take the spot? And the first person to take the spot was now in it. And that just isn't the way you schedule Kidmin volunteers. And so I was looking for something that I could see not just 1 month at a time, like 1 week at a time. I needed to see the whole month. And also because if you've been listening to this podcast at all, you know that I favor weekly volunteers. And then secondly, every other week volunteers. And so when I'm working on the schedule, I need to be able to see the patterns all together. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen this, like this way of teaching about the important things in life. You got like this jar and you fill it with the big rocks first, and then you fill it with small rocks, and then you fill it with the sand, and then you fill it with the water. You keep asking each stage, is this jar full? Is this jar full? And you keep adding more to it. I feel like it's kind of like that when I'm working on my schedule. I want to start with the big rocks first, and those are my weekly volunteers. So I get them all in place. And then I start with the small rocks next, which are my every other week volunteers. And I put them, and I want to pair them with their partners so that way they're with the same kids in the same places. And so then I'm going to add in the subs, and I'm going to add in maybe the new volunteers that are training. And so I need to be able to see a whole month at a time. Originally, Planning Center Online I don't believe it'll let me do that. Now they have a matrix view, which is amazing. I look at the matrix view is just about the only view I'll look at. I want to be able to see it. I want to be able to see the pattern. I found that when you're scheduling volunteers week to week, it's easy for volunteers to fall through the cracks. It's easy to forget a volunteer that maybe you didn't schedule a volunteer this week, and then you forgot to schedule the next week, and then you forgot again the following week, and then they didn't message you back, and then all of a sudden 6 weeks go by and you hadn't scheduled a volunteer the whole time. But when you're looking at it a month at a time, people don't fall through the cracks that way. And so it's so interesting. So now when I was using that Google Calendar to schedule my volunteers, not my Google Calendar, Google Spreadsheet to schedule my volunteers, I had a template. So I'd encourage you. I know if you use Planning Center Online, you can create templates. I don't know if the other scheduling software allow you to create templates. They should. But basically, it's like who normally serves in what rooms and what positions week after week. When I used my Google spreadsheet, I basically had two templates. I had an A template and a B template because I did have maybe 10% of my volunteers served every other week. So I had an A team and a B team. And so I had my A team template and my B team template. And I had all my weekly volunteers on both of them, but I had my every other week volunteers half on one, half on the other. And so I would make 2 copies of my A template, 2 copies of my B template, and then I'd rename them. And I'll do January A, and that would be January week 1. January B would be, or the week B template was January week 2. And then the other copy of week A would be January week 3. And then my other copy of template B would be January week 4. So that way I had the every other week volunteers on the correct weeks. And I would start with that template, and then I would start building them out that way. You can do the same thing in Planning Center online. You can create templates and just move your people around. But that's, again, the beauty of having your people who serve every week. Man, they're your big rocks. They stay there. And the people that don't serve every week, then you know where they serve. And here's a smaller tip in this big idea. When it comes to, and right now I'm talking to my early childhood directors, my early childhood coordinators. Resist the urge to move people around. Okay. If you recruit a volunteer who serves every week, keep them in the same room every week. Don't move them around. If you recruit a volunteer who serves every other week, as best as you can, keep them in the same room every week. Okay. Consistency matters. And here's why. If you say, let's say you recruit a great weekly volunteer and they're dependable, they show up every week, you're going to be really tempted to ask them for a favor because they're there. You know they're going to be there. And then all of a sudden when say they're a 4-year-old volunteer, all of a sudden when your 3-year-old volunteer calls out sick at the last minute, you're going to be tempted to call that 4-year-old volunteer who's always there and say like, hey, is it any way we could move you to the 3-year-old classroom this week to cover there? They're going to say yes, because they're a great volunteer. And then the next week, the 2-year-old one is out. You're going to move them there. And then they're going to be back with their 4-year-olds again. And the next week you might merge classrooms. And here's what's going to happen. 3 months, 5 months, they're done. They're done. The consistency never really happened. You recruited them. You promised them that they'd build a relationship with kids, and they never have. And so you have to approach this in such a way that you're going to do everything humanly possible to not move your consistent volunteers so they can continue to build relationships with the kids and they fall in love with a group of kids, and they're going to last. It's going to save you volunteer scheduling time in the long run. But resist the urge. Resist the urge. Don't move them around. Okay. So this is the first big idea. Stop scheduling week to week. Schedule monthly, at least. Could you schedule further out? Sure, you could. Let's start with a month. Okay. Okay. Second big idea. Stop chasing confirmations. Okay. This is another one of my pet peeves that I had with Planning Center. And I'm just picking on Planning Center because they're the first ones to do it. And they did it so well. And again, I don't have a beef with them anymore because I love them, because I use them for all these things. But I do just a couple weeks ago when I was at CPC, at Children's Pastors Conference in Orlando, I was talking to people about their scheduling, and they brought it up again of chasing confirmations. Oh, this is such a pain. Somebody on my team just recently asked me, hey, can we do a training on Sunday mornings about confirmations? If I had a nickel for every time I had a staff person ask me to send an email, send a text, or do a huddle training on how to click confirm, I've had 7 or 8 nickels. Maybe not that many, but let me just say, it happens more often than you know. And this is a part that's so ironic. Planning Center, online, and other software, it was created to save you time. But in this one instance, I found that so many children's ministry leaders have become a prisoner to that green check, to confirming. And so I've literally watched people on my team and teams of churches I consulted where they would spend an inordinate amount of time chasing down those silly green check marks because Bob didn't hasn't confirmed yet. Bob and so it kind of held them prisoner. They couldn't finish the schedule because they didn't know that everyone was coming. And I would just say, stop. Okay, stop chasing confirmations. It's a waste of your time. You need to set some new rules. Okay, some new rules, some new expectations. Because here's the deal: you're not going to train somebody to confirm. Like they're already giving you a weekly commitment of showing up. It's like stop asking for such a minimalistic, simple thing. Okay. You sit back in the driver's seat of confirmation. If it makes you feel better, send out an automated text or send out a text real quick, like, hey, just want to make sure you're going to be there on Sunday. If they say yes, then just confirm. Like, don't make a big deal out of it. Hey, you could have done that. Don't just get the confirmation. But here's what I would say for your weekly volunteers or your really consistent bi-weekly volunteers: call them up, or the next time you see them, have a conversation and say, like, hey, I'm trying to streamline this process. I don't want to keep bugging you with confirmations. Here's what's going to happen. When I schedule you at the beginning of the month for the whole month or whatever schedule it might be, I'm just going to auto confirm you for all of them. So you need to let me know, like, if something changes, but I'm not going to ask for confirmation. When I schedule you, I'm going to auto confirm that you're in. You know what? Everybody's going to say, yeah, sounds great. That sounds great. You can just know. Now, again, you're going to send a reminder. Like you're going to, maybe they get that planning center reminder that goes out on Wednesday or Thursday to confirm that, like, lets them know what they're doing on Sunday. You might even want to send them a text on Saturday. That's what I do. Send a text on Saturday. Just, hey, can't wait to see you tomorrow. It's another little confirmation. And then just have the expectation that they're going to show up. Now, if you have people not show up, you can have a one-on-one conversation with them, like, hey, what happened? Like, why didn't you show up? You got an email? You got a text? They're not going to say, oh, I promise you, they're not going to say, I never confirmed. No, that confirmation is a figment of an imagination that we created when we took on the software. Stop. You can turn that off to where they don't get those confirmations anymore, or you can auto confirm them. But just stop. Too many of us have been a prisoner to this confirmation thing. Get rid of it. Say, I'm scheduling a month at a time now. And when I schedule you, you're going to get an update of when you've been scheduled. If there's a problem, you need to black out dates. Feel free to text me, email me. I'll fix it for you. This is going to save you maybe dozens of hours. Okay. Stop chasing confirmations. Okay. And here's the last big idea. Okay. And this is a big one. Okay. Give your volunteer schedule away. Okay. This volunteer scheduling part of your job, it feels so heavy because for many of us, we're the only ones who can carry it. Like, we're the only one with login access to the software. We're scheduling week to week. So we remember who we talked to last week and who we talked to 2 weeks ago. And we're chasing down these things. And so you're carrying the burden of something that you have to do for 5 or 6 or 7 hours every week. And you're exhausted and you can't give it away if you manage that way. But if you move to a monthly schedule, and again, maybe you're only 70% there or 80% there, all of a sudden you have something to look at, a structure, something that you can look and see a month at a time and have a pretty good idea of where your ministry is at 4 to 5 weeks out. Okay. You start there. And then you stop with the chasing confirmations. Like, I don't have to do that anymore. When I schedule, I let everybody know, and then they're auto confirmed. When you're in that kind of a place, you can give this to somebody else. You could print out your schedule and put it on a clipboard. And maybe you've got a volunteer in your ministry who you trust implicitly. They're there every week. And you lean into them and you say, could you help me with this? Could you help me with the scheduling? Now, I'm a big fan of this volunteer position. We call them coaches. And they do more than just scheduling, but they do help us with the scheduling. For you, it might be a hallway coordinator. It might be, I want to say it's bigger than a room leader. It's going to be somebody who oversees probably multiple rooms. But let me cast a vision for you. As somebody that has the schedule, and it might just, again, literally, it might be printed out. It could be an iPad with the matrix view of Planning Center Online or whatever it may be. And basically on Sunday during your 9 o'clock service, they're going to go room to room and just relationally, okay, connecting with each of the volunteers, say, hey, I just wanted to confirm February schedule just went out and we've got you down for the first, second, and fourth week of February. Is that still good for you? Okay, perfect. And they're gonna confirm it for you, or they're gonna, maybe there's somebody that they've had a wonky schedule. There's been a couple of weeks where they haven't showed up. This volunteer is going to chase down like, hey, we got you scheduled for the first and third. I know last month your schedule got mixed around. Does that still work? Can we confirm that? They're going to chase it down. They maybe there's a sub that's subbing today. You're like, hey, thank you so much for subbing today. Hey, we're looking at February and we've got a couple sub spots on the second and third week. Would either one of those weeks, or would both of them, would you be willing to do that? If you had somebody who did that, now again, they may not be able to find your subs for you, but they may be able to get all your confirmations and confirm your schedule to where you sit down in front of your computer on Monday and 90% of the work's already been done. And you don't have to do it anymore. Somebody else is going to partner with you. And honestly, that part of the role that you give to a volunteer on Sunday, it's not hard. It actually, somebody in this role is actually going to enjoy doing it. They're going to feel like they've been helpful. Now, they're not going to want to make phone calls for you maybe during the week. They're maybe going to want to hammer away emails during the week, but on Sunday morning, they can connect with people face to face and ask them the questions. If you move away from weekly scheduling and you move away from chasing confirmations, you can give your schedule away. And for some of you, you're going to find yourself a place where you might be able to give 99.9% of the schedule away. You might give them access to Planning Center where they can get in and they can make some of the confirmations. And now you're able to take a deep breath of fresh air and going to be able to work on the things that you've not been able to work on, the things that you want to be able to focus on that you're not being able to focus on, because this volunteer scheduling chaos has been eating your lunch. So 3 big ideas to lean into. Listen, I've been doing this long enough. I know that most people aren't doing these 3 things. So I'm assuming that if you're listening to this or watching this, you might not be doing these 3 things either. So hopefully that inspires you, that gives you some hope. There's some other ideas and tools that I'd love to share with you as well. Those will come in future episodes. But again, thank you for being here. Thanks for joining the Kidmin podcast. We look forward to seeing you again in a future episode.